Hello everybody, this is Keith from CryptoCoinMindSet. I hope this video finds you well today. And as always, today I am here to help you get your mindset on crypto. Today in particular, I want to talk about money, what real money is, sound money is, a little bit of history even about money, where we are in the current money system, and the idea of is cryptocurrency actually real money? All right, let's dive in. Now, most of what I'm going to talk about today, I've written an entire article about, and there's a link in the description below to go on my blog and check it out. A whole article about is cryptocurrency real money? And I break that question down, give you a current answer, project a little bit to the future, and talk about the attributes of real money and how that relates to like layman's terms. Because remember, I'm not an accounting major. I'm not here to give you financial advice. I'm just an average guy who's trying to wrap his head around what is going on in the world, what's going on with the US dollar, what's going on with cryptocurrency, and passing that information on to you as I understand it to try and make it as easy as possible for the average person, the layman, to wrap their head around it and make the best decisions possible for yourself and your family based on this information. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to shoot straight as I understand it, give you the resources I can in order to back that information up. And again, at the end of the day, this isn't financial advice. You need to use this as a starting point to do your own research, make your own investments, and move you and your family in whatever direction works for you. All right, so let's start out with, is cryptocurrency real money? Even if you're new to the space, you kind of know that answer already. In most parts of the world, crypto is not considered real money. Now, it was designed to be a form of money that could be used as payment between two parties, well, two or more parties, I suppose, without the need for a trusted third party like a bank. This, as you know already, Bitcoin was designed and put out into the wild after the banking crisis in 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto. Right now in the US, again, basing this on the United States, you're going to have to do research if you're tuning in from another country. But as of the recording of this video, here in the United States, cryptocurrency is considered property. So much like your house or other pieces of property, it's subject to capital gains taxation. Now, as you're going to see as we go along in this video, we're going to have to, well, in academia and the government and pretty much anywhere except the normal people, they like to split hairs on definitions of things. So I'm going to try and give you the best definition for the average guy or gal out there who's watching this video so you can understand what exactly we're talking about. Now, the question I started with was, is cryptocurrency real money? Well, let's take a look at the definition of exactly what real money is, because I guarantee you it's not what you think. All right, real money. Let's read the definition I've got here for real money. The term real money, as it's used in the financial space, refers to large entities that trade considerable amounts of capital. These entities include groups like hedge funds and asset managers. So basically, I remember the first time that I was, somebody tried to introduce me to Bitcoin. It was back in 2010, 2011. And as he was talking to me about this, I was stupid belligerent like people are today when we try to educate them about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I remember at one point pulling like a $10 bill out of my pocket and being like, this is real money. If you can't hold it, it's not real money. Well, I guess that would be physical money. And we know what's happened with the US dollar and in the last 10 years since I had that interaction with that guy. And as a matter of fact, If you're listening to this, I'm very sorry I didn't listen to you. If I did, I would be in a much better financial situation today than I am. But without digressing. So real money basically refers to these large entities, so hedge funds and so on, that trade everybody's money grouped together inside the market. And I know, like, when you and I talk about money, we assume that, like I did back 10 years ago, that the US dollar, so we'll refer to US dollars because of the recording of this video, it's still the world reserve currency, although we got de-dollarization going on as we speak, and we'll talk about that more later on in this video. But this US dollar is not real money, and we're going to see why shortly. But okay, you assume when you're talking about money that your money is sound, like it's got value, right? Well, let's take a look at what sound money actually means. Like I said, when we're talking about sound money, and in the case of US dollars, we're assuming that our money is sound. But let's be honest, that there is absolutely nothing further from the truth. So to understand exactly what sound money is, let's go back in time here a little bit to Bretton Woods. So circa World War II. And if you're not familiar with Bretton Woods or the Bretton Woods Agreement, again, I have links in the article to all of this information, so you can go ahead and do your own research, or you can just Google it up. It's not like it's difficult to find. But basically, that agreement is the basis of where the US dollar became the world reserve currency and bringing us through to at least the 70s. And we're about to see why I say that. And you can see here, I put in a video from Mark Moss. If you are not subscribed to his YouTube channel, he has two actually, you really should be. Link to his channel in the description below. Make sure you go and follow him. Make sure you click that bell icon and get all the information from him, because honestly, he's much more eloquent about this than I could ever be. But go ahead, subscribe to his channel. While we're on that topic, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you do that. Hit that bell icon so you get a notification every time I put out a new video, and we really appreciate that. I'm trying to get this channel up over 1,000 subscribers, so if you could share it and make sure you subscribe and ask your friends and family to do so, I would really appreciate that. Okay, back to this. So basically, world leaders got together in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and they decided that they were going to use the US dollar as the world reserve currency. And in order to make that US dollar sound, so other countries would then peg themselves and their own currencies to the US dollar and or use the US dollar, every US dollar was backed by an ounce of gold at the price of $35 an ounce. Why gold? I mean, let's be honest, gold has been money since pretty much the beginning of time. So when they did this, this was called the gold standard. And to just digress for a moment, as much as I talk to you about investing in cryptocurrency and being able to use cryptocurrency to get outside of the current system that we're in, it's a good idea to not have all your eggs in one basket. I don't care what it is, what your investment is. So you should consider diversification of your investments. And can I suggest gold? I put a link in the description below. It is an affiliate link. It costs you nothing to use it, and it helps support the channel when you use it. But it will take you to Acre Gold. And here you can actually pay as little as $50 a month. And they will compile all your money until you get enough for them to send you a gold bar. Now, you can pick from any different amount, from 1 gram to 2.5, 5 to 10 grams of gold. That's up to you, but the price of $50 a month, it's an easy, simple way to invest in gold. I do it, been doing it now for over a year. I've chosen to do the 2.5 grams. So I've received my gold in the mail, can't complain, put it in a nice safe place, and that helps me to diversify, not just with US dollar, not just with crypto, but also with gold. So again, not financial advice, but if you're looking for a simple, effective, safe way to diversify into gold, link is in the description below. Go check out Acre Gold. All right, let's get back to where we were. So I mentioned that things changed in the 1970s. In particular, it was 1971 when President Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. When he did that, he set us down the path that we are currently on, not just the United States, but the world as a whole. Because remember, the US dollar was the world reserve currency. So everyone in the world who had a US dollar supposedly had the ability to take that US dollar, come to the US, and get their 1 ounce of gold. When he depegged the US dollar off the gold standard, that changed. And he literally changed history and moved us down the path we're on now, which is the fiat money system. The phrase fiat money is gaining more understanding these days. Initially, people didn't even realize the term. But basically, fiat money is currency that's only backed by the government. It has no intrinsic value whatsoever. It basically gets its value from the people who participate in the economy that uses it. So basically, you're using fiat currency. So people right now are using the US dollar because of their faith and trust in the US government. And now, I don't want to get down a whole political road right now. However, we all know that the faith in the government of the United States has been in decline for decades now. And over the last several years, it's just forget about it. Just forget about it. We can see it with the divisiveness in this country. But we want to put some facts behind what I'm saying. Let's take a look at some polls about trust in the government. And again, links to all this will be in the description below. Okay, so trust in the government since between 1958 and 2022. I mean, you can see very plainly that it's been pretty much a steady decline since 1958. There was a bit of a bump right around 2001 when September 11th happened. And, you know, during that time, if you were alive, you remember there was national unity. There was no infighting about anything. Everybody was on the same page. It was like, and even across the world, it was a unifying force that unfortunately didn't, hold everybody together for long enough. Because we are nowhere near that unifying force today. But you can see that little bump right there around 2001. And again, pretty much on a steady decline since then. And here we go. This is the latest polls. President Biden just announced 2 or 3 days ago that he was going to run again for president. God help us. But he's starting out with some of the worst approval numbers of any president. So again, when you're using a fiat currency, that fiat currency is based on the trust and faith in the government. To further show the distrust worldwide in the US dollar, countries all over the world are starting to de-dollarize. They're starting to trade in things other than the US dollar. We've seen that with the Arab oil producing nations who are now willing to sell oil in currency other than the US dollar. Countries are making their own agreements to use their own currencies within trade to basically block out the US from being that world reserve currency. And the more countries that do this, the weaker the US dollar is going to become. It only makes sense. It's a supply and demand issue, and we're going to talk about that coming up soon. So let's get back to it. Now, just to put it out there for those who don't know, the US dollar is not actually printed and issued by our government. It's issued by a central bank. Our central bank is called the Federal Reserve. That's the issuing authority of the US dollar. And as I note here, don't be mistaken by the name. Just because it says Federal Reserve does not mean it's a federal entity. Central banks are their own entities who issue the currency of the government in which they're situated. So for us, the Federal Reserve issues the US dollar. Congress supposedly controls the purse strings, but as we've seen from various Fed announcements in an attempt to fight our 40-year high inflation rates, the Fed is the one who sets the rates. Okay, so let's talk about what actually is giving our money its value. The most commonly used method for determining the value of money is considering it as a medium of exchange. So, the aggregate supply of money as opposed to the demand for that currency. What does that sound like? Supply and demand. How we use that to exchange the money and the quantity of it that we have in relation to the goods and services we want, right? So I love this chart that we have right here called the rise and fall of the dollar. You can see how when it started out, there was a slow decline when the Fed was created, and it kind of bounced back up there right around World War II. And then you see Bretton Woods, and it's been a steady decline ever since. And it's the valuation of the US dollar is like practically non-existent currently. It's sad how little purchasing power there is with the US dollar. And sadly, the US dollar is one of the strongest currencies in the world. So think about that in respect to other countries' money. There are a few different things that influence the supply and demand for dollars. One of these things is inflation. And the down and dirty, simple, easy definition of inflation is a broad rise in the price of goods and services. Now, we know just from what we were just discussing that it isn't necessarily the rise in a price of the goods or services that we're actually purchasing, but rather the devaluation of the money we're using to purchase it. In theory, for example, if we were using a Bitcoin standard, the pricing of goods and services would be quite less than what it is for US dollars, because even as of this moment in time, with the inherent volatility of the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies for that matter, it still maintains more value intrinsically than the US dollar, and will only gain more as it becomes more of a factor as a medium of exchange. But we're going to get to that in a minute. So inflation is one of those factors that affects the money supply. And we're watching the Fed now constantly raising interest rates and basically crushing businesses to make it more difficult for businesses to get the money they need in order to expand. Then there's the velocity of money. This isn't something that people talk about often, but it is something that you really should understand. Basically, the velocity of money is a measurement tool that determines the number of times a particular unit of your currency, so a particular US dollar, is exchanged domestically, so here within the country for various goods and services during any given period of time. Now, I go into telling you that you can calculate the velocity rate by dividing the gross domestic product into the money supply, but we don't need to worry about that. The biggest thing to remember is that for the longest time, the money has been able to change hands quite quickly because the Fed has been using the money supply to help regulate inflation. Now, they've done this for over a decade with what's called quantitative easing. So basically printing money, injecting it into the economy, into the stock market, to otherwise inflate, lots of things that shouldn't be inflated instead of letting them go by the wayside, but increasing the supply of money. Again, think about it. The more scarce something is, generally speaking, the more valuable it is. This is why Bitcoin has its current valuation and is projected to be so much more valuable in the future because, again, fixed supply of 21 million. And of that 21 million, there's probably a good 4 or 5 million that are lost forever. So the US dollar, on the other hand, until recently, has been just printed and printed and printed. And the Fed has increased the circulating supply of money by 42% over the last 3 years. So since 2020, when COVID hit, what happened? They were sending out stimulus checks and they were giving this business money and that business money. They were injecting all kinds of money into the economy. 42% of all the money that's ever been in existence has been printed since 2020. Wrap your head around that. And here's the thing. The Fed can keep hitting that print button all they want. There is no end to the potential printing of the US dollar. So what does this mean? It means that the US dollar is just going to continue to lose its valuation. Now, the Fed did try to slow things down, if you recall, back at the end of 2022, and they did the opposite of quantitative easing. They started quantitative tightening. And what happened? The economy all but crashed on top of itself. So the Fed has continued to buy into businesses, stocks, flooding money into the market, into the economy in order to keep it afloat. And what are they doing in the meantime? They're raising interest rates, again, like I mentioned. So it makes it more difficult for businesses to get their hands on the money they need in order to keep their businesses running or expand their businesses. Bottom line is, the future is not bright for the US dollar. How long that future is, who knows? But it ain't bright. So let's come back to where we started. Cryptocurrency being considered real money. There are some places where crypto is considered real money. The first country to accept Bitcoin as legal tender was El Salvador. We reported on that right after it happened. Now, El Salvador still does have the US dollar, but they've created incentives to start the transition to using Bitcoin as the primary legal tender. And they've gotten heat for this from the IMF. The IMF is the ones that provide funds to governments to expand, do different things, control monetary policy, etc. And the only way the IMF can control these governments is by giving them these loans and grants and all this other stuff. And of course, they come with strings attached. The IMF has been very vocal with this whole anti-crypto rhetoric because they can't control Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It's open source and decentralized, unlike what's going on with the central banks issuing these various government currencies. I don't want to get down that rabbit hole too far, but know this, that there are places in the world, and frankly, even within the United States, that will accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as legal tender. And there are more countries already exploring those options and trying to make those transitions. Again, links to all that information is in this article, and the link to this article in the description below, so go ahead and check it out. So this begs the question, will Bitcoin and cryptocurrency ever be considered real money? Honestly, I think the answer is yes. However, I'm not sure of the time frame. Who would be? Nobody knows. There's a lot of pushback from governments right now. Currently, over 80% of all Bitcoin transactions, less than $1,000, are happening on the continent of Africa. Why is that? Because that is one of the continents that has the most unbanked people in the world. So they're using an alternative system to the one that exists. So to wrap it up, is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency real money? By all the legal definitions as we speak, in most parts of the world, the answer is no. There are a few parts of the world where it is. And the future for that to happen and expand to be real money is very, very promising. I really appreciate you staying on for this video. If you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button, tick the bell icon, click the all. That way you get notified when I put out another great video. Please hit that like button. Really appreciate it. It helps the channel. And be sure to check out our website, CryptoCoinMindset.com. We'll see you in our next video. Take care.